Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily DVAR Halacha. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Wednesday, 17th day of January, first day of Shvat. So it's Rosh Chodesh. Please note, Tuesday night on Wednesday is Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Remember, I like to remind you, all of your Rosh Chodesh additions, the Alav Yavo, Halal, half Halal, and everything, please don't forget that. Now back to the unit. We're just finishing up one unit today, which is preparing on Shabbos for after Shabbos. Generally, the rule is that you're not allowed to prepare on Shabbos for weekday type of activities. That's considered just, disgracing the honor of Shabbos, that you're busy arranging your Sunday activities while you're in the holy day of Shabbos. So next example of that would be, if you're having a party in your house, let's say, on Motzei Shabbos, or, I don't know, guests are coming over, and you want to be busy setting up the chairs and tables on Shabbos afternoon for the get-together that's happening in your house on Motzei Shabbos on Saturday night, that's not appropriate. That is clearly preparing on Shabbos for after Shabbos. So setting up the chairs and the tables or anything like that is not allowed on Shabbos for after Shabbos. Next example. Let's say you're learning out of a good Jewish sefer, you're spending your Shabbos afternoon properly, and you come upon a thing that I love this thing, I want to quote it. As a matter of fact, I want to put a paper clip right here so I could remember this, so that next week, is that called preparing for after Shabbos? What are you doing? You're going to get a paper clip to put in the book to remember that quote, so that next week where you are going to do something, you're going to remember to quote that. Is that called preparing for after Shabbos? The answer to that, according to the poskim, is no, that's fine. That's allowed. Because when you put that paper clip in that and you want to remember that thing, it's putting it in your memory forever. You might even re-quote it that Shabbos afternoon. So it's not called preparing for later. This is a piece of Torah that I always want to remember for the rest of my life. I might even want to go look at it again later this Shabbos afternoon. So putting that paper clip on that famous spot that I want to remember in this book, that's allowed. Because that's not considered preparing for after Shabbos. It's preparing for every day of the rest of my life, including Shabbos. I always want to remember this Gemara. So yes, you may mark a spot in a book in the middle of Shabbos, and that's not called preparing. Next one. Let's say I finished learning out of a certain Jewish book, and I want to put it back on the bookshelf in its right place. Is that called preparing for after Shabbos? Because, after all, why do you need it in its right place? Because the next time you go look at it, which is probably next week, which is a weekday, then you're guilty of preparing for after Shabbos, aren't you? The answer, again, the poskim say, is no, it's fine. Because you need that book to be in its proper place for every day in the rest of your life whenever you're going to want to go look it up. And it might even be this Shabbos afternoon. So therefore, you're allowed to spend like some extra moments putting that book in the right spot. And that's not called a weekday preparation. That's like a regular preparation. That's what you do with a good Jewish book on a bookcase. You need it in its reference spot so you can re-reference it next Wednesday or even this Shabbos afternoon. So it's not called a weekday preparation. If it's very obvious that it's for the weekday, then you're not allowed to do it. Like it's a book that you use every Wednesday in your math class and you're putting it back on the math shelf. That's clearly not a Shabbos activity, so that you shouldn't be doing. Here's another interesting one. You might see sometimes in shul how when the Torah reading is over, some people go around the shul collecting up all of the chumashim and they put them all back on the shelf. That is clearly allowed because the chumashim will be needed later that Shabbos afternoon for the Torah reading of the afternoon or whatever. So it's very appropriate to collect up the chumashim in the middle of Shabbos morning and put them back on the shelves. But here's where it gets interesting. Let's say everybody finished davening mincha, Shabbos afternoon, and some guy is running around the shul spending 20 minutes collecting up all the siddurim to put them back on the shelf. When's the next time you're going to need those siddurim? For Marav, right? Marav is after Shabbos, so it's a bit of a problem. If you're collecting all the siddurim after mincha to be used at Marav Saturday night, which is after Shabbos is over, then it's a little bit problematic to be spending a whole siddur recollection late Shabbos afternoon when it's clearly for Marav, which is after Shabbos. So that is problematic. You might have to just leave the siddurim all over the shul where they are, Have everybody just find one from Arav, and if you want to tidy up the shul and tidy up all the Sidurim, then you'll have to do it after Shabbos is over. That would be more appropriate. And lastly, before we end this unit, I just want to mention to you that in general, conversations on Shabbos that are for plans about a fundraiser or a activity that's all kinds of business talk or anything that's off of Shabbos focus, generally big conversations that are plannings for organizations and stuff like that, for that to happen on Shabbos is kind of sketchy. I guess if it's a good Jewish cause, sure, then maybe it's appropriate. But if it's for some random thing like what are we all doing next Wednesday afternoon? Should we go on that camping trip in the summer? That's not really appropriate Shabbos talk. Thanks for logging on. Have a good Chodesh, and tomorrow we start a new unit on We'll See. Bye-bye.